My granddaughter Lily dropped her voice to a whisper and shattered my world. "Grandma, I heard Mommy and Daddy say they're putting you in a home today and taking your money." I kept stirring my oatmeal. I kissed her small head. Inside me, something sharp and cold clicked into place. They thought I was weak. But they were wrong. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The warning came from 8-year-old lips on a Tuesday morning. Lily leaned close at breakfast. Her parents planned to ship me away. Take my money. Put me in a place with nice names. I kept stirring the oatmeal. Round and round. The spoon clinked against ceramic. My granddaughter's voice was barely a whisper. Mom and Dad said tonight they would do it. Tonight. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and betrayal. I had spent 18 months playing their game. The agreeable widow. The built-in babysitter. The woman who never said no. That woman died at the breakfast table. Lily drew clouds on her napkin with purple crayon. She hummed while she drew. Children hum when adults forget they have ears. I made lists in my head. Lawyer. Bank. Documents. Car keys. The oatmeal grew cold in my bowl. Robert had been gone 18 months now. Heart attack in a sterile room. White sheets. Beeping machines. Then silence. Derek came to the funeral in his good suit. Kayla wore black and appropriate tears. They held my elbows like I might fall. Sell the house, they said. The market is hot. Come live with us. We need each other. $600,000 erased their mortgage. Paid their debts. Made their lives easier. I signed papers with shaking hands. Grief makes you stupid. Trust makes you blind. They drove me to their suburban box. 4 bedrooms. 3 bathrooms. No room for an old woman's independence. My days became their schedule. School pickup. Grocery runs. Dinner prep. Laundry folding. They managed my mail. Handled my calls. My book club friends stopped calling. My church ladies got busy signals. My car keys moved to a hook I could not reach. Lily was the only honest one in that house. She told me about their whispered conversations. About the brochures hidden in kitchen drawers. About Maple Grove and its monitored independence. Monitored independence. Words that smile with too many teeth. I finished the oatmeal. Every last bite. Waste not, want not. Robert used to say that. Lily showed me her cloud drawing. Puffy white things in purple crayon sky. I told her clouds move when they need to. Sometimes they bring rain. Sometimes they just drift away. She nodded like she understood. At 10 that morning I called information. Asked for Carla Nguyen, my old classmate. The one who became a lawyer. Carla's voice sounded exactly the same. 40 years melted away. I need help, I told her. I need it today. She cleared her afternoon. Met me at Grounds Coffee on 5th Street. Brought a legal pad and the kind of face that believes you. I told her about the power of attorney Derek insisted would make paperwork easier. About the bank statements I never saw. About the phone calls they filtered. About tonight's plan for Maple Grove. Carla wrote everything down. Her pen scratched across yellow paper. Each word was evidence. We revoked the power of attorney first. One signature. Derek's control vanished. Next came the banks. I moved every account to Riverside Credit Union. Changed every password. Flagged every login attempt. The money hummed through new wires to safety. We drafted a new will. Everything in trust for Lily until 25. Professional oversight. No family hands in the honeypot. The house money became conditional. If they broke our deal, they would pay it back. With interest. With consequences. I signed papers with steady hands this time. Grief was gone. Clarity remained. By 3 that afternoon my financial life belonged to me again. I bought groceries on my way home. Pot roast. Potatoes. Carrots. The ingredients for a last meal in that house. The kitchen felt different when I cooked. Like borrowed time. Like borrowed space. Derek came home at 5:30. His tie was loose. His smile was rehearsed. Kayla arrived 10 minutes later. She carried Lily's backpack. Wore guilt like perfume. We ate pot roast around their dining table. I had bought the table. Paid for the house. Fed their family for 18 months. Lily told us about art class. About the clouds she drew. About weather patterns and pressure systems. Children learn about pressure systems in 3rd grade now. Derek cleared his throat after dessert. He and Kayla exchanged looks. The kind married couple's perfect. We have something to discuss, he said. Something wonderful for you, Mom. Maple Grove, Kayla added. Such a vibrant community. Craft classes. Supervised activities. Medical staff on site. No more worries about being alone. Their words painted pretty pictures. Freedom with guardrails. Independence with supervision. I nodded at the right moments. Asked the right questions. Played the grateful mother. Then Carla knocked on the door. She entered like weather. Professional. Unavoidable. Carrying a briefcase that meant business. Carla sat at their dining table. Opened her briefcase with metallic clicks. Spread papers like tarot cards. She explained the revocations. The account changes. The new will. The conditional repayment terms. Derek's face went white. Then red. Then gray. Kayla stared at the carpet. Studied its pattern like sacred text. I clarified the terms. Simple words for simple minds. If I was not safe here, I would leave. The money would follow me home. $600,000 plus interest. Due in 30 days. Lily asked if we could have ice cream. Sometimes children know when adults need sweetness. I packed my suitcase that night. 34 years of marriage fit in one bag. Funny how little space a life requires. I slept at the Hampton Inn on Route 9. The door locked from the inside. The keycard belonged to me alone. For the first time in 18 months, I slept through the night. Morning came with room service coffee and clear thinking. I had work to do. Phone calls to make. Apartments to see. A new life to build from the bones of the old one. Lily would visit weekends. We would swim and bake cookies and practice honest math. What you earn, what you owe, what you keep. The rest would follow. Justice has its own timeline. Sometimes it moves like clouds. Sometimes it strikes like lightning. I preferred lightning. My storm was just beginning. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The next 3 days moved like slow water. I found an apartment near Riverwalk Park. 2 bedrooms, large windows, a kitchen that faced east. Morning light matters when you start over at 67. The landlord was a woman named Mrs. Chen. She had kind eyes, steady hands. She understood about fresh starts. First month, last month, security deposit, keys that belonged to me alone. I signed the lease with my maiden name, Eleanor Patricia Hoffman, the woman I was before marriage, before Derek, before 18 months of borrowed time. Moving day came on a Friday. 3 men with a truck. Boxes from storage. Furniture Robert and I bought in better years. Derek called 17 times. I let each call go to silence. Kayla sent text messages. We need to talk. Please call us back. We can work this out. Delete. 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 The apartment smelled like fresh paint and possibility. I hung Robert's picture on the living room wall, next to the window where morning sun would find his face. We had been married 34 years. Good years. Hard years. Years that mattered. He would have liked this place. The quiet. The light. The way the floorboards creaked honest creaks. Saturday morning I called Lily's school. Asked to speak with Principal Martinez. Made an appointment for Monday afternoon. Some conversations require witnesses. I spent the weekend arranging furniture, hanging pictures, making the apartment look like home. Home. A word I had forgotten how to use. Sunday evening Derek appeared at my door. His face was hollow, his suit wrinkled. He looked like a man who had not slept. He said he was sorry. Said they never meant for things to go this far. Said family should stick together. I listened from behind the chain lock. Let his words hit the door like rain. Sorry is a word. Action is a language. He spoke the wrong one. I told him to leave. Told him to take his apologies somewhere else. Told him lawyers would handle everything now. He drove away in his Honda. Tail lights disappearing into suburban darkness. Monday came with October rain. I dressed in my navy suit. The one I wore to Robert's funeral. The one that made me feel like someone who could handle hard things. Principal Martinez had gray hair and laugh lines. Her office smelled like coffee and construction paper. Like childhood and safety. I explained the situation, the legal proceedings, the need for supervised visits with Lily. She took notes on yellow paper. Asked careful questions. Made phone calls to people who understood these things. Lily could see me after school on Fridays. In the principal's office. For 1 hour. Until the courts decided more. Better than nothing. Less than everything. Friday afternoon Lily ran into that office like sunlight. 8 years old and all elbows and knees and questions. She hugged me like I might disappear. Like adults do when trust breaks. We colored pictures at the small table. Talked about her math homework. About the book she was reading. She asked why I moved away. Why Daddy looked so sad. Why Mommy cried in the bathroom. I told her that sometimes adults make mistakes. That love and money can get tangled up. That entangling takes time. She nodded like she understood more than she should. 1 hour passed like 5 minutes. Like 5 years. She asked if she could visit my new apartment. Asked if I had room for sleepovers. Asked if we could make pancakes again. Soon, I told her. When the lawyers finish their work. When everything gets sorted out. Children believe in soon. Adults know better. That evening I sat in my new living room. Drank tea from Robert's favorite mug. Listened to rain against new windows. The apartment felt too quiet. Too empty. Too much like starting over. I called Carla. Asked about next steps. About timelines. About how long justice takes. She said Derek had hired Alan Pierce. A lawyer who specialized in family disputes. A man who made his living from other people's broken hearts. He would argue I was confused. Manipulated. Unable to make sound decisions. Age discrimination wrapped in legal language. Gray hair equals diminished capacity. I laughed into the phone. Let Carla hear the sound of a woman who knew her own mind. We scheduled appointments. Cognitive evaluations. Financial reviews. Medical assessments. I would prove my competence with test scores. With documentation. With the kind of evidence courts trust. Tuesday morning I drove to Dr. Patel's office. A psychologist who specialized in capacity evaluations. A woman who understood the difference between age and confusion. 2 hours of memory tests. Pattern recognition. Problem solving. Questions designed to measure the sharpness of an older mind. I treated it like a final exam. Like something that mattered. Because it did. Dr. Patel had gentle hands and direct questions. She asked about my daily routine. My financial management. My decision-making process. I told her about budgets and bank statements. About medication schedules and grocery lists. About the 1,000 small choices that prove competence. She took notes. Made recordings. Treated my answers like evidence. Which they were. Wednesday I met with Carla's financial investigator. A former FBI agent named Tom Bradley. A man who found truth in numbers. We spread 18 months of bank records across his conference table. Traced every deposit, every withdrawal, every transfer. The story was written in dollars and cents. $600,000 from my house sale. Mortgage payments. Credit card bills. Vacation deposits. My money. Their debts. My grief. Their opportunity. Tom Bradley circled the evidence with red ink. Made copies for the court. Built a case from paper trails. Thursday evening Derek called again. Said we needed to meet. Said he had things to explain. Things that would make me understand. I agreed to lunch on Friday. Romano's restaurant on Main Street. A public place with witnesses and noise. Some conversations need an audience. Friday morning I dressed carefully. Navy dress. Pearl earrings. The armor of a woman who meant business. Romano's smelled like garlic and old conversations. Derek was already there, sitting in a corner booth. Looking like a man who had run out of options. I slid into the opposite seat. Ordered coffee. Waited for his confession. He talked about the pregnancy they lost. About medical bills and fertility treatments. About hope that cost more than they could afford. About Robert's second life insurance policy. About Monica Reyes and shared beneficiaries. About money that should have been split 2 ways. About the $500,000 they kept. The $500,000 they never told me about. His words fell like stones into still water. Ripples spreading outward. Truth finally finding its way to the surface. I listened without speaking. Let him empty his guilt onto the table between us. When he finished, the silence stretched like a held breath. I told him I already knew. Had already found Monica. Had already started the legal process. His face went white, then gray, the color of a man who had run out of lies. I paid for my coffee. Left him sitting in that booth. Walked out into October sunshine. Some storms announce themselves with thunder. Others arrive quietly, like subpoenas, like handcuffs, like justice finally showing up for work. Mine was the quiet kind. The deadliest kind. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. That afternoon I called Monica Reyes from my kitchen table. Information gave me her number in Atlanta. A woman's voice answered on the 3rd ring. I told her my name. Told her about Robert. About the insurance policy they shared. The silence stretched like a held breath. Then she asked if I was Robert's wife. Yes, I said. The wife who buried him 18 months ago. Monica's voice changed. Became smaller. Softer. Like someone who had been carrying guilt too long. She said Derek told her there was a mistake. An insurance company error. That she should cash her check quickly. $500,000. Half of what should have been mine. I explained about the split beneficiary designation. About Robert's intentions. About Derek's helpful handling of paperwork. Monica started crying over the phone. Said she never knew, never understood, never meant to take what wasn't hers. Good people make mistakes in grief. Bad people make plans. She asked what she could do to fix it. How to make things right. We talked for an hour. Made plans. Made promises. Made something like friendship from shared betrayal. Monday morning Monica drove up from Atlanta. She brought a checkbook, a lawyer, a conscience that weighed more than money. We met at Carla's office. 4 women around a conference table. Truth spread between us like evidence. Monica's check was made out to Derek Hart. Endorsed with his signature. Deposited in an account I never knew existed. Her lawyer had copies, bank records, proof of Derek's lies wrapped in legal language. Carla added it to our growing file. Fraud, theft, elder exploitation, words with teeth. Monica insisted on writing me a check. $500,000. The money that should have been mine all along. I told her to keep it. To split it with me when the courts were finished. When justice had its say. She shook her head. Said wrong was wrong. Said money stolen was money owed. We compromised. She would hold the funds in escrow. Let lawyers sort out the mathematics of fairness. Tuesday morning the doorbell rang at 7:30. I was drinking coffee, reading yesterday's news, living like a normal person. 2 men in dark suits stood on my doorstep. FBI agents with badges and serious faces. They wanted to know about Robert's insurance policies. About Derek's handling of financial matters. About money that moved in suspicious directions. Insurance fraud crosses state lines. Becomes federal business. Gets investigated by people with handcuffs. I invited them in. Made fresh coffee. Answered every question with the truth. They took notes. Made copies. Treated my dining table like a crime scene. Which it was. Wednesday Derek was arrested at his office. Handcuffs in front of his coworkers. Perp walked past the water cooler. Kayla called me crying. Said there had to be a mistake. Said Derek would never do such things. I listened to her tears through the phone. Let her grief fill the silence between us. Sometimes denial is the last kindness we offer ourselves. Thursday evening Lily called from her friend's house. Her voice was small, scared, like a child who had seen too much. She asked if her daddy was in jail. If he was coming home. If everything would be okay. I told her that adults sometimes break rules. That breaking rules has consequences. That love survives consequences. She asked if she could visit me. If we could make cookies. If normal was still possible. Soon, I told her. When the lawyers finish their paperwork. When the dust settles. Children need hope like plants need water. I gave her what I could. Friday I drove to Derek's house. The house I had bought. The life I had funded. The family I had supported. A for sale sign sat crooked in the front yard. Restitution has its own real estate market. Kayla met me at the door. Her eyes were red. Her face was hollow. She looked like a woman who had discovered her life was built on quicksand. We sat at the kitchen table. The table I had bought. Drank coffee from cups I had given them. She said Derek never told her about Monica. About the second policy. About the money that wasn't theirs. She said they thought I was confused. Thought they were helping. Thought I needed protection from my own decisions. Good intentions paving the road to federal prison. I asked about Lily. About school. About how to explain Daddy's absence to an 8-year-old mind. Kayla said they told her Daddy was sick. That he needed special help. That sometimes help looks like going away. Children's lies are simpler than adult truths. We talked about visitation, about weekends, about maintaining connection through catastrophe. I wanted Lily safe, wanted her loved, wanted her protected from the wreckage adults create. Kayla promised to bring her by on Saturday mornings, to let us have time together, to rebuild what could be rebuilt. Some bridges burn completely, others just need new foundations. Saturday morning came with November rain. Lily arrived in her purple raincoat, carrying a backpack full of homework and hope. We made pancakes in my new kitchen. Her favorite recipe, the one Robert used to make on Sunday mornings. She asked about the apartment, about my bedroom, about whether I was lonely. I showed her the second bedroom, the one I had set up as an office, the one that could become something else if needed. She asked if she could have sleepovers when Daddy came home, when everything was normal again. I told her normal was whatever we made it, that families come in all shapes, that love adapts to circumstances. We spent the afternoon at the park, fed ducks, walked trails, pretended the world was simple. Lily asked if I was angry at her daddy, if I hated him for making mistakes. I told her anger was a choice, that I chose something else, something harder but better. I chose justice. I chose truth. I chose protecting her future from other people's greed. She nodded like she understood. Children understand more than we think. Sunday evening I sat in my living room. Robert's picture watching from the wall. Rain tapping against windows like Morse code. The phone rang. Carla's voice came through the speaker. Urgent. Excited. Like someone with good news. The grand jury had voted to indict. 18 counts. Federal charges. Real prison time if convicted. Derek's lawyer wanted to make a deal. Guilty plea. Reduced sentence. Cooperation in exchange for mercy. Justice comes in many forms. Sometimes it wears a judge's robe. Sometimes it carries handcuffs. Sometimes it looks like a broken man asking for forgiveness he doesn't deserve. I told Carla to listen to their offer, to consider their terms, to remember that mercy without accountability is just enabling. We would see what Derek was really worth when the bargaining began. Monday morning brought sunshine and subpoenas, discovery motions and depositions, the machinery of justice grinding forward. I dressed in my navy suit, the one that made me feel capable, the one that reminded me who I used to be before 18 months of diminishment. Today I would tell my story to a federal prosecutor, would speak truth into a recording device, would add my voice to the evidence against my own son. Some duties feel like betrayal. Others feel like salvation. This felt like both. The courthouse smelled like marble and consequences, like decisions that couldn't be undone. I walked through those doors carrying Robert's memory, carrying Lily's future, carrying the weight of a woman who had learned to choose justice over peace. Some choices echo forever. These were mine. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The federal prosecutor was younger than Derek. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, the kind of woman who made her living from other people's crimes. Her name was Assistant U.S. Attorney Sarah Chen. She had files stacked like building blocks, evidence organized like a life's work. We sat in a windowless room. Fluorescent lights, recording equipment, the machinery of justice humming quietly. She asked me to start at the beginning. Robert's death. Derek's helpful hands. The power of attorney that made everything easier. I spoke into the microphone like confession, like testimony, like truth finally finding its voice. 2 hours of questions, 2 hours of answers, 2 hours of a mother explaining why her son belonged in prison. When we finished, my throat was dry. My hands were steady. My conscience was clear. Some stories need telling, even when they break your heart. Tuesday afternoon, Carla called with Derek's plea offer. Guilty to 6 counts. 18 months minimum security. 5 years probation. Full restitution. Financial monitoring. No contact with vulnerable adults without supervision. The government wanted more. Wanted him to testify against others. Wanted him to name names in insurance fraud networks. Derek claimed he worked alone. Said it was family business. Said he never meant for it to go this far. Isolation defense. The last refuge of amateur criminals. I told Carla the plea was acceptable. Justice comes in many forms. This one had Derek's signature. Wednesday morning I drove to the Federal Detention Center. Concrete walls. Wire fences. The architecture of consequences. Derek sat behind glass in an orange jumpsuit. He looked smaller. Older. Like a man who had run out of options. We spoke through phones that tasted like disinfectant. Like other people's desperation. He apologized again. Said he never meant to hurt me. Said the money was supposed to help everyone. Good intentions don't pay restitution. Don't undo federal crimes. Don't repair broken trust. I told him about Lily. About her questions. About the lies Kayla told to protect an 8-year-old heart. He asked if she knew. If she understood. If she would visit him in prison. Children love their fathers even when fathers disappoint them. Even when fathers wear handcuffs. I promised to bring her when she was ready. When she was old enough to understand complex truths. Some visits require emotional preparation. Some require years. Thursday I met with Dr. Patel for my competency results. 2 hours of testing reduced to numbers on paper. Cognitive function normal for age group. Financial reasoning excellent. Decision-making capacity fully intact. No signs of diminishment. No evidence of confusion. No suggestion that grief had clouded my judgment. Age discrimination wrapped in legal language. Dismissed by science. I was competent to manage my own life. Competent to make my own choices. Competent to seek justice for crimes committed against me. The report went to 3 places. Derek's lawyer. The federal prosecutor. The civil court handling restitution. Truth documented in triplicate. Friday evening Lily stayed overnight for the first time since I moved out. She brought her stuffed elephant. Her favorite pajamas. A backpack full of hope. We made spaghetti with Robert's sauce recipe. The one with extra garlic. The one that filled the kitchen with memories. She asked about the pictures on my walls. About Robert's medals from the airline. About why some people keep everything and others throw things away. I told her about the difference between remembering and hoarding. About keeping what matters and releasing what hurts. She nodded like she understood. Children adapt to wisdom faster than adults. We watched movies until she fell asleep on the couch. I carried her to the guest room. Tucked her in like a normal grandmother would. Normal. A word that meant different things now. Saturday morning we made pancakes shaped like hearts. Like stars. Like the things children believe in. Lily asked when Daddy would come home. When the family would be together again. When everything would go back to the way it was. I told her some changes are permanent. That families reshape themselves around new realities. That love finds new ways to exist. She asked if I was still angry. If forgiveness was possible. If people could start over after making big mistakes. I told her anger was exhausting. That forgiveness was complicated. That starting over was something everyone deserved to try. Even Derek. Especially Derek. Sunday afternoon Kayla came to pick up Lily. She looked tired, worn down, like a woman carrying too much weight. We talked on the front steps while Lily gathered her things. Adult conversation around the edges of child protection. The house would sell by Christmas. They would move to a smaller place. She had found work at a dental office downtown. New beginnings built on old rubble. She asked if Derek could call me from prison. If family connection was still possible. If bridges could be rebuilt from concrete and wire. I said yes to phone calls. No to financial discussions. Maybe to visits when Lily was older. Boundaries written in permanent ink. Monday morning brought news of Derek's sentencing date. February 15th. Valentine's Day. Irony with a federal court stamp. 18 months in minimum security. 5 years probation. $600,000 in restitution with interest. Monica's money would be split between us. Half to cover Derek's debt to me. Half returned to her as victim compensation. Justice in mathematics. Fairness in spreadsheet form. Tuesday I started volunteering at the food bank. Sorting donations. Serving meals. Staying useful while staying busy. The work smelled like industrial soap and human need. Like second chances and empty stomachs. I worked alongside women my own age. Widows. Retirees. Women who understood about starting over after loss. We didn't talk about our stories. Didn't share our reasons for being there. Just sorted canned goods and served dignity with every plate. Purpose doesn't require explanation. Wednesday evening Derek called from detention. His voice sounded hollow through the prison phone system. He wanted to know about Lily's school play. About Kayla's new job. About normal life continuing without him. I told him about parent-teacher conferences. About Lily's math grades. About the ordinary details of family life. Some conversations are about information. Others are about connection. This was both. He asked if I would write to him in prison. If I would accept his calls. If forgiveness was possible. I told him forgiveness was a process. That trust required rebuilding. That 18 months was enough time to think about redemption. Some promises are immediate. Others require installment payments. Thursday I joined a book club at the library. 8 women reading mysteries, drinking coffee, solving fictional crimes. We discussed motives. We analyzed evidence. We debated justice in stories where good always triumphed. Real life was messier, more complicated, less satisfying in its resolutions. But fiction offered practice, training wheels for hope. Friday afternoon I picked up Lily from school. Regular grandmother duties. Normal life asserting itself. She showed me her art project. A family tree made from construction paper. Her own small hands had cut out leaves for every relative. She had included Derek. Had written, "Daddy," on a brown paper branch. Had placed him in the tree despite his absence. Children understand family differently than courts do. Love differently than justice does. I helped her glue the last leaves in place. Watched her create permanence from paper and hope. Some trees survive pruning. Some grow stronger after storms. Ours was learning to bend without breaking. Saturday evening I sat in my living room. Robert's picture watching from the wall. Justice served. Truth acknowledged. Family reshaped but not destroyed. Derek would serve his time. Would pay his debt. Would learn that consequences have their own curriculum. Lily would grow up knowing that right and wrong matter. That adults can make mistakes and still deserve love. That families survive even federal crimes. I would continue building this new life. One day, one choice, one small act of moving forward at a time. Some storms destroy everything in their path. Others just rearrange the landscape. Mine had done both. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Christmas came with snow and silence. Lily spent Christmas Eve with me. We hung stockings on my mantle, made cookies shaped like stars, watched old movies until she fell asleep. She asked why Santa wouldn't visit Daddy in jail, asked if good behavior applied to federal prisoners, asked questions that had no easy answers. I told her Santa understood about complicated families, about love that survived mistakes, about hope that traveled through prison walls. Children need magic more than adults need truth. Christmas morning we opened presents on my living room floor. Books, games, a jewelry box that played Lily's favorite song. She gave me a picture she had drawn. Our family tree, everyone included, even Derek behind bars. Love in crayon and construction paper. She asked if we could visit Daddy after Christmas. If federal prison allowed 8-year-old visitors. If she was brave enough to see him in orange clothes. I called the prison that afternoon. Asked about visitation rules. About procedures for minor children. About the paperwork required for broken families. Application forms arrived by mail 3 days later. Background checks. Reference letters. Documentation proving I was fit to bring a child into federal custody. The bureaucracy of family reunion. New Year's Eve I sat alone in my apartment. Watched fireworks through my window. Listened to neighbors celebrating new beginnings. Resolutions are for people who believe in fresh starts. I believed in continuation. In building tomorrow from today's small choices. January brought routine and rhythm. Food bank on Tuesdays. Book club on Thursdays. Lily every Saturday morning. Normal life assembled from ordinary moments. The apartment felt less empty now. More lived in. Like a place where someone actually made decisions and kept promises. I planted herbs on the windowsill. Basil, rosemary, things that grew toward light. Things that made ordinary meals taste like home. February 10th Carla called about Derek's sentencing. 5 days until Valentine's Day justice. 5 days until federal consequences. Derek wanted me there. Wanted family in the courtroom. Wanted someone who remembered him before he became a case number. I bought a navy dress for the occasion. The color of dignity. The color of women who show up even when showing up hurts. February 14th arrived gray and cold. The courthouse smelled like marble and consequences. Like decisions that echoed through generations. Derek sat at the defendant's table in his good suit. The one I had bought him for job interviews. For better occasions than federal sentencing. His lawyer spoke about remorse. About family circumstances. About a man who lost his way in grief and desperation. The prosecutor spoke about elder abuse. About violated trust. About crimes that targeted the vulnerable and trusting. Both versions were true. Neither version was complete. Judge Morrison was older than Derek. Younger than me. A woman who understood about family and justice occupying the same courtroom. She spoke about accountability. About the special trust between generations. About sentences that served both punishment and deterrence. 18 months in federal prison. 5 years supervised release. Full restitution with interest calculated monthly. Derek turned in his chair when the gavel fell. Our eyes met across the courtroom. His were full of apology and fear. Mine were full of love and consequence. The bailiff led him away in handcuffs. Orange jumpsuit replacing the good suit. Son becoming prisoner in the space between one breath and the next. I sat in that courtroom until the room emptied. Until the silence felt complete. Until the weight of watching my own child receive justice settled into my chest. Some victories feel like loss. Some losses feel like victory. This felt like both. Outside the courthouse, Kayla waited on the steps. Her face was red from cold and crying. Her coat was too thin for February weather. We walked to my car without speaking. Some moments require silence before they require words. She asked if I thought Derek deserved 18 months. If justice felt satisfied. If federal prison would teach him what family disappointment could not. I told her justice and deserving were different mathematics. That consequences and punishment served different purposes. That 18 months was enough time for thinking and not enough time for forgetting. We sat in my car until the heater warmed our silence into something closer to conversation. She said Lily wanted to visit Daddy before he transferred to prison. Wanted to say goodbye while he still looked like her father instead of a federal prisoner. Children need closure that adults can provide or postpone. February 20th, we drove to the detention center. 3 generations of women visiting one federal prisoner. Love adapting to concrete and razor wire. Lily wore her best dress. The blue one with white flowers. The one that made her feel grown up enough for adult situations. The visiting room smelled like industrial cleaners and nervous families. Like second chances and supervised conversations. Derek appeared in his orange jumpsuit. His face lit up when he saw Lily. Fatherhood surviving federal custody. She ran to him like he was still the daddy who pushed her on swings. Who read bedtime stories? Who existed before handcuffs and case numbers? They sat at a metal table and colored pictures together. Father and daughter creating art under fluorescent lights and security cameras. She showed him her math homework. Her latest drawings. Her loose tooth that the tooth fairy would surely visit. Normal conversation in abnormal circumstances. Derek asked about school. About friends. About the ordinary details of childhood that continue despite parental incarceration. She told him about my apartment. About Saturday pancakes. About the herb garden growing on my windowsill. Life adapting to new addresses and visiting schedules. When our time ended, Lily hugged him like she might not see him again soon. Like 8-year-olds do when adults explain temporary separations. She asked when he would come home. When they could make pancakes together again. When normal would return to their address. He promised to write letters. To call when prison phones allowed. To remember every day that he was her daddy even when he couldn't act like one. Some promises are about presence. Others are about persistence. The drive home was quiet. Lily fell asleep in her car seat. Exhausted by the emotional mathematics of loving someone in federal custody. I carried her into my apartment. Tucked her into the guest bed. Watched her sleep like childhood despite everything. February 25th, Derek transferred to minimum security prison in West Virginia. 3 hours away. Far enough to matter. Close enough for visits. The first letter arrived March 3rd. Prison stationery. Careful handwriting. Words chosen for both love and institutional monitoring. He wrote about daily routine. About work assignments. About the library where he could read books and remember who he used to be. He asked about Lily, about her school play, about whether she still believed in tooth fairies and bedtime stories. I wrote back that evening. Told him about Saturday mornings. About herb gardens and book clubs. About life continuing in his absence. Some correspondence builds bridges. Some maintains them. March 15th marked 1 year since I moved out of Derek's house. 1 year since I reclaimed my own life from their helpful management. I celebrated with coffee and silence. With gratitude for doors that locked from the inside. With appreciation for choices that belonged to me alone. The apartment felt like home now. Like a place where someone made decisions and kept promises. Like a place where love and consequences could coexist. Lily's drawings covered my refrigerator. Her books filled my shelves. Her laughter echoed through rooms that remembered joy. Family reshaping itself around new addresses and visiting schedules. March ended with spring light and growing herbs. With letters from prison and Saturday pancakes. With routine built from choices instead of circumstances. I had learned to distinguish between loneliness and solitude. Between family and enablement. Between love and accountability. Some lessons cost everything you thought you knew. These had cost exactly that. And been worth exactly that. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. April brought rain and revelation. Monica called on a Tuesday morning. Her voice sounded different, smaller, like someone carrying news too heavy for phone wires. She had been reviewing Derek's financial records with her lawyer. Digging deeper into the insurance fraud. Following money trails that led to uncomfortable truths. There was more, always more when men lie about money. She asked if we could meet. If I could drive to Atlanta. If I was strong enough to hear what she had discovered. I packed an overnight bag. Called Carla. Made arrangements for truth that required a road trip. Thursday morning I drove south on I-75. 4 hours through Georgia pine and morning fog. 4 hours to face whatever Monica had found in Derek's paperwork. Her house sat on a quiet street with swing sets and mailboxes. The kind of neighborhood where children rode bicycles and adults waved from porches. Normal life undisturbed by federal crimes and family betrayal. Monica answered the door with red eyes and steady hands. She looked like a woman who had not slept. Who had spent days wrestling with conscience and consequence. We sat at her kitchen table. Spread documents like evidence. Like puzzle pieces of Derek's deception finally forming a complete picture. The insurance money was more complex than we knew. More calculated. More devastating. Robert had changed his beneficiaries 5 years before he died. Added Monica as co-beneficiary after her pregnancy. After the miscarriage that broke both their hearts. Derek knew about the affair. Had known for years. Had used that knowledge like a weapon when Robert's guilt made him generous. Monica showed me Robert's letters. Love letters written on airline letterhead. Words that proved my husband's heart had room for 2 women. I read them in her bright kitchen. Absorbed betrayal with morning coffee. Learned that 34 years of marriage contained secrets I never imagined. Some truths arrive like lightning. Others like slow poison. This felt like both. Robert wrote about loving 2 women differently. About obligations that felt like prison bars. About choosing duty over desire year after year. He wrote about Monica's pregnancy. About the baby they lost. About grief that bonded them deeper than joy ever could. He wrote about providing for her future. About insurance policies and legal protections. About ensuring she would never want for anything. He wrote about me. about respect and loyalty, about the difference between the woman he married and the woman he loved. The letters were dated over 3 years. Careful handwriting on company paper. A love affair conducted in stolen moments and airline schedules. Monica cried while I read them. Apologized for secrets kept too long. For complications that followed her into widowhood. I folded the letters carefully. Placed them back in their envelopes. Handled evidence of betrayal like it might break. Some revelations require delicate handling. Others require bourbon. This required both. We talked through the afternoon. 2 women connected by one man's divided heart. 2 widows sharing the arithmetic of abandonment. She told me about their relationship. How it started. How it continued. How it ended with Robert's death and Derek's helpful management. 18 months of grief. 18 months of thinking I was the only woman mourning Robert's absence. Now I learned I was half of a larger sorrow. Monica asked if I hated her. If the letters changed everything. If knowing the truth was better than believing the lie. I told her hatred required energy I no longer possessed. That truth was always better than comfortable fiction. That Robert's choices belonged to Robert alone. We were both victims of men who made decisions for us. Who managed our emotions like checking accounts. Who thought women were too fragile for honesty. Some discoveries unite strangers. Others unite survivors. Friday morning Monica drove me to her lawyer's office. More evidence. More documentation. More proof that Derek's crime had deeper roots. The lawyer was a woman named Patricia Wells. Sharp suits. Sharper questions. The kind of attorney who found truth in places other people hid it. She had been investigating Derek's finances for months. Following paper trails. Connecting dots that formed pictures of systematic deception. Derek had intercepted Robert's correspondence with Monica. Had forged signatures on legal documents. Had created a false narrative about insurance company errors. He had stolen more than money. He had stolen truth from 2 grieving women. The documentation filled 3 file folders. Bank records. Forged letters. Email communications that proved premeditation. This was not grief making someone stupid. This was calculated theft wrapped in family concern. Patricia asked if I wanted to pursue additional charges. If fraud was enough or if we needed to add forgery and mail tampering. I told her 18 months in prison was sufficient. That some punishment served justice and some served vengeance. I preferred justice. It aged better. Saturday morning I drove home through Georgia rain. 4 hours to process betrayal compounded by betrayal. 4 hours to reorganize 34 years of memory. Robert was not the man I thought I married. Derek was worse than I thought I raised. Some weeks rearrange entire decades of understanding. Sunday evening I sat in my living room. Robert's picture watched from the wall. The same face. The same smile. Entirely different man. I considered taking it down. Considered packing away the medals and certificates. Considered erasing evidence of a marriage built on partial truths. Instead I left everything exactly where it belonged. Robert's choices were Robert's responsibility. My memories were mine to keep or discard. I chose to keep the good ones. To acknowledge the complicated ones. To let the dead rest with their secrets. Monday morning brought a letter from Derek. Prison stationery. Careful handwriting. Words chosen for love and institutional monitoring. He wrote about daily routine. About work assignments. About books he was reading in the library. He did not write about Robert's affair. About the letters he intercepted. about the lies he built on other people's secrets. Some truths travel slowly, others require delivery. I wrote back that evening. Told him Monica and I had been talking. Had been sharing information. Had been piecing together the complete picture. I told him I knew about the letters. About the forgeries. About the systematic deception that made his crime possible. I told him truth was a gift even when it arrived wrapped in pain. Tuesday, Derek called from prison. His voice sounded hollow through the phone system, like sound traveling through concrete and regret. He asked if I hated him now. If knowing everything changed the possibility of forgiveness. If 18 months was enough time to earn back trust he had never deserved. I told him hatred was exhausting. That forgiveness was complicated. That trust was something earned in installments over years. I told him I loved him despite everything. Because of everything. Through everything that could not be unchanged. Love and accountability were not opposites. They were dance partners in the choreography of family. Wednesday, I planted tomatoes in my windowsill garden. Small seedlings reaching toward spring light. Green things growing despite winter's damage. Some growth requires destruction first. Some requires careful tending through seasons of doubt. Lily helped me water them Saturday morning. Asked why some plants grew faster than others. Why some needed more sun. More patience. I told her about seasons. About timing. About how some beautiful things took longer to develop. She nodded like she understood. Children adapt to metaphors faster than adults adapt to truth. April ended with growing plants and growing understanding. With letters from prison and revelations from Atlanta. With family redefined by honesty instead of convenience. I had learned to distinguish between the husband I married and the man he became. Between the son I raised and the criminal he chose to be. Some lessons arrive like spring rain. Gentle, necessary, preparing ground for whatever grows next. Others arrive like storms, violent, destructive, clearing space for entirely new landscapes. Mine had arrived like both. The garden was still growing. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. May brought warmth and difficult decisions. Derek had served 3 months of his 18-month sentence. Time crawled differently behind bars. Faster for those watching from outside. His letters arrived weekly now. Prison routine giving him structure and purpose. Work in the library. GED tutoring for younger inmates. Small acts of redemption measured in daily choices. He wrote about a cellmate named Marcus. 52 years old. Federal tax evasion. A man who understood about white-collar consequences and middle-aged regret. They talked about families. About children who stopped visiting. About wives who filed divorce papers from outside concrete walls. Derek wrote that prison taught different lessons than shame ever could. That consequences had their own curriculum about accountability and humility. I believed him. Prison changed men or it hardened them. Derek seemed to be choosing change. May 15th marked 2 years since Robert's death. 2 years of grief transformed into wisdom. 2 years of learning to distinguish between mourning and martyrdom. I drove to his grave with fresh lilies. White ones that smelled like spring and memory. Flowers that forgave without requiring apologies. The headstone looked smaller now. Less imposing. Like grief that had learned proper proportions. I sat on the grass beside his marker. Spoke to limestone and earth about forgiveness and betrayal. About love that survived revelation and disappointment that survived love. Robert had been a complicated man. Faithful husband. Loving father. Secret keeper. Heartbreaker. All of it true. None of it simple. I forgave him his affair. His divided heart. His choice to protect me from truth I deserved to know. Some forgiveness is about the forgiven. Some is about the forgiver. This was about closing accounts with honesty instead of bitterness. The cemetery smelled like cut grass and spring rain. Like endings that allowed new beginnings. May 20th brought news about Derek's early release possibility. Good behavior. Successful program completion. 18 months reduced to 15 if he continued his current trajectory. Federal prison rewarded genuine rehabilitation with time served and time forgiven. Carla called with the details. Derek could apply for supervised release in September. Home confinement. Electronic monitoring. Gradual reintegration into family and society. The question was whether home included my address. Whether forgiveness extended to cohabitation. Whether love meant opening doors that fear suggested keeping locked. I told Carla I needed time to consider. Time to measure readiness against wisdom. Time to distinguish between enabling and grace. Some decisions required more than good intentions. They required prayer and practical planning. May 25th. Lily stayed overnight again. We made pizza from scratch. Watched movies until she fell asleep on my couch. Practiced being grandmother and granddaughter without crisis management. She asked about Daddy's letters. About whether he was learning important lessons. About whether sorry was enough to fix broken trust. I told her about the difference between remorse and repentance. Between feeling bad and choosing differently. Between words and actions that proved words meant something. She nodded like she understood. Children grasp accountability faster than adults practice it. Saturday morning we visited the farmer's market. Bought tomato plants for my expanding garden. Lettuce seedlings. Herbs that would grow all summer if tended carefully. Lily helped me choose the healthiest plants. The ones with strong roots. The ones that looked ready for transplanting. Some metaphors write themselves. Others require 8-year-old wisdom to recognize. Memorial Day weekend I drove to West Virginia. First visit to Derek's minimum security prison. First time seeing him in federal blues instead of Orange County jumpsuits. The facility looked more like college campus than correctional institution. Brick buildings. Manicured lawns. Men walking freely between dormitories and work assignments. Minimum security meant minimum drama. Men who had learned that freedom was earned through compliance and consistency. Derek met me in the visiting room wearing regulation clothes and genuine smile. He looked healthier, calmer, like a man who had found rhythm in restriction. We sat at picnic tables under surveillance cameras. Ate vending machine sandwiches. Talked about ordinary things in extraordinary circumstances. He asked about Lily's school year. About my garden. About whether I had heard from Monica recently. Normal conversation threading through abnormal setting. I asked about his daily routine. His work assignments. His plans for release and reintegration. He talked about library work. About teaching literacy to men who had never learned to read properly. About discovering purpose in unlikely places. He talked about Marcus. About conversations that happened after lights out. About men helping men navigate guilt and redemption in 2-hour increments. He talked about understanding consequences for the first time. About accountability that went deeper than apology. About earning forgiveness through action instead of expecting it through relationship. Prison had been good for Derek. Better than freedom had been. Better than family enablement and financial temptation. Some people need walls to find their true boundaries. Need structure to discover their authentic selves. When visiting hours ended, Derek hugged me like a son who understood the gift of maternal presence. Like someone who no longer took love for granted. He asked if I would consider home confinement at my address. If supervised release could mean family reunion. If redemption was possible in my spare bedroom. I told him September was still months away. That some decisions required more time than applications allowed. That love and wisdom sometimes required different timelines. Some promises require installment payments. Some require complete financial restructuring. The drive home gave me 4 hours to think. 4 hours to measure compassion against common sense. 4 hours to distinguish between forgiveness and foolishness. Prison had changed Derek, but prison walls had also protected me from testing that changed too quickly. Home confinement would test everything. His commitment to accountability. My commitment to boundaries. Our family's ability to rebuild trust in daily increments. June arrived with summer heat and harder questions. Derek's lawyer filed preliminary paperwork for supervised release. Federal forms requesting grandmother's address as suitable housing. I had 60 days to decide. 60 days to measure readiness against obligation. 60 days to choose between safety and family reunion. Lily spent more weekends with me now. School was ending. Summer plans required grandmother involvement and grandfather absence. She asked if Daddy would come home soon. If our family could have barbecues again. If normal was something we could practice together. I told her that families reshaping themselves required patience and faith. That some reunion happened gradually. That love learned to exist in many different arrangements. Children adapt faster than adults heal. Faster than trust rebuilds. Faster than wisdom allows. June 15th I called Derek's lawyer. Asked about conditions for home confinement. About monitoring requirements. About what supervised release actually meant in practical terms. Electronic ankle bracelet. Daily check-ins with probation officer. Restricted movement within approved radius. Employment within walking distance or public transportation. House arrest with permission slips. Freedom with training wheels. The conditions felt manageable. The emotional mathematics felt more complicated. Could I wake up every morning with Derek in my spare bedroom? Could I trust him with my mail? My banking? My granddaughter's overnight visits? Could I distinguish between forgiveness and reconciliation? Between love and enabling? Between family loyalty and personal safety? Some questions required more than 60 days to answer. Some required a lifetime of small daily choices. June ended with tomatoes ripening on my windowsill. With letters from prison arriving like clockwork. With decisions that would reshape our family's future approaching like summer storms. Visible from far away, unavoidable, carrying potential for both destruction and renewal. I was still learning to tell the difference. Still learning that love and wisdom were not opposites. That accountability and grace could occupy the same address. Still learning that some storms cleared the air for better weather. The decision was coming. Ready or not. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. July 4th I made my decision. Independence Day seemed appropriate for choosing independence. For drawing boundaries with permanent ink. For saying yes to family reunion with conditions that mattered. I called Derek's lawyer at 9 in the morning. Told him I would accept home confinement at my address. With rules. With expectations. With consequences for broken trust. Derek could live in my spare bedroom for 6 months. Could rebuild his relationship with Lily under my supervision. Could prove that prison lessons translated into daily choices. But my apartment remained my domain. My mail stayed private. My finances stayed separate. My life stayed mine. Some generosity required guardrails. Some forgiveness required insurance policies. July 8, I drove to West Virginia for the conversation that would change everything. Or change nothing. Or change only what deserved changing. Derek met me in the visiting room wearing hope-like new clothes. He had heard about my decision through lawyer channels and federal paperwork. I explained my conditions, my expectations, my non-negotiables wrapped in motherly love and hard-earned wisdom. No access to my financial accounts. No managing my correspondence. No making decisions for anyone except himself. Daily check-ins with his probation officer. Weekly drug tests. Monthly meetings with a counselor who specialized in financial crimes and family rebuilding. Employment within walking distance of my apartment. Bus routes only. No car privileges until trust earned them back through demonstrated reliability. Lily's visits required my presence and permission. No unsupervised time with his daughter until family counseling proved he understood appropriate boundaries. Derek listened without interrupting, nodded at the right moments, accepted conditions that would have insulted the man he used to be. Prison had taught him about earning privileges instead of expecting them, about proving worthiness instead of demanding trust. He asked when he could come home. When supervised release would begin. When our family could start practicing reunion. September 15 if the paperwork cleared federal bureaucracy. If the judge approved our arrangement. If supervised release meant what everyone hoped it meant. Some homecomings require more planning than departures ever did. July ended with preparation and anticipation. I cleared Derek's old belongings from storage. Made space in my life for someone who had learned to require less space. August brought forms and interviews. Federal probation officers visiting my apartment. Measuring square footage. Checking locks. Ensuring my address could contain a federal prisoner learning to be a son again. They asked about my relationship with Derek. About forgiveness and boundaries. About whether I understood the difference between helping and enabling. I told them about 2 years of learning. About consequences that taught better lessons than sympathy ever could. About love that survived accountability and grew stronger because of it. They approved our arrangement with official stamps and federal signatures. Derek Hart could serve his remaining sentence at 412 Riverwalk Avenue. Under his mother's roof and supervision. Some victories arrived in government envelopes. August 20, Lily started 3rd grade. New teacher. New classroom. Same questions about when Daddy would come home and whether families could heal from federal crimes. I told her September would bring changes. That Daddy would live with me for a while. That healing happened slowly and required patience from everyone involved. She asked if we could have family dinners again. If Daddy could help with homework. If normal was something we could practice together. I told her that normal looked different now. That families reshaped themselves around new rules and old love. That some things would be the same and others would be permanently different. Children adapt faster than adults learn. Faster than trust rebuilds. Faster than wisdom allows safe reunion. September 1 Derek called from prison with final arrangements. Release date confirmed. Transportation scheduled. Federal supervision beginning with my address as his approved residence. He sounded nervous. Excited. like a man who understood that freedom required more responsibility than imprisonment ever had. He asked if I was ready, if my apartment was prepared, if our family was strong enough for the test that supervised release would bring. I told him readiness was overrated. That strength came from making good choices daily instead of feeling prepared for all possibilities. That family was something we would have to practice together. Some reunions required faith more than readiness. Some required hope more than certainty. September 12th, I cleaned my apartment like company was coming. Like someone important was moving in. Like a son was coming home to a mother who had learned to love him differently. I made up the spare bed with fresh sheets. Cleared space in the bathroom cabinet. Stocked the refrigerator with foods that reminded me of better times. Home preparation required both practical arrangements and emotional archaeology. September 15th arrived gray and cool. Autumn announcing itself with morning fog and changing light. The kind of day that felt like transitions and new beginnings. I drove to West Virginia at 7 in the morning. 4 hours to collect a federal prisoner who was also my son. 4 hours to begin the most complicated chapter of our family story. Derek emerged from minimum security carrying everything he owned in a paper bag. Prison clothes, letters I had written, books he had read while learning about accountability and second chances. He looked smaller outside the prison walls. Less certain, like a man who had grown comfortable with structure and felt nervous about the freedom that required more choices. We drove home through September countryside. Talked about practical things, probation schedules, employment possibilities, the logistics of rebuilding life from federal supervision and family grace. He asked about Lily. About school and friends and whether she remembered him as daddy or just as the man who used to live with them before handcuffs changed everything. I told him children remembered love more than mistakes. Remembered presence more than absence. Remembered the parent who showed up more than the parent who disappointed them. Some memory was selective. Some was protective. All of it was merciful in ways adults struggled to understand. We reached my apartment at 2:30. Derek stood in my living room holding his paper bag, looking around at the life I had built without him. The life he would now share under federal supervision and family conditions. He asked where he should put his things, where he belonged in this space that had learned to function without him. I showed him the spare bedroom, the closet I had cleared, the desk where he could write letters and fill out job applications and practice being accountable to probation officers and family members. This was home now, temporary but real, supervised but genuine, family reunion with ankle bracelets and check-in schedules. Some homecomings looked different than anyone imagined. Some felt like victory and defeat happening simultaneously. That evening we ate dinner at my small table. Derek in civilian clothes, electronic monitor blinking on his ankle. Freedom measured in federal increments. He thanked me for giving him this chance. For choosing grace over safety. For believing that prison had taught him lessons worth testing in real life. I told him gratitude was demonstrated through actions. That second chances required first-rate follow-through. That family reunion was something earned daily through choices that honored trust slowly being rebuilt. Some conversations happened over pot roast and possibility. Some happened over consequences and hope. This happened over both. September 16th, Derek reported to his probation officer at 8 in the morning. Began the daily routine of supervised release. Federal accountability measured in check-ins and drug tests and employment applications. That afternoon he came home to my apartment. Called it home for the first time. Meant it in ways that surprised us both. Some words carried more weight after prison. Some carried less. Home carried exactly the right amount. The hardest part was over. The healing part was just beginning.